Welcome back. And from Middle East politics, we're moving to the United States politics. And we're going to be looking at Kamala Harris and the wave she is creating in America. And the all important question, of course, is can Donald Trump's team keep up? Are they going to overtake her? Can they sustain their momentum, or is Kamala Harris way ahead? To talk to us about it is Professor Anthoni van Nieuwkerk. He is Professor of International and Diplomacy Studies at Unisa. We've talked before. I've enjoyed that discussion. I have no doubt that this too will be a discussion of deep insights into American politics. Very good morning. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the invitation.
So the upcoming American elections, Joe Biden's, the pressure on Joe Biden, of course, we all know that he refused to step down or step aside, but common sense prevailed somewhere along the line. And then he endorsed Kamala Harris as the Democratic candidate to stand for the presidential elections. I was pretty surprised. I always kind of viewed her as someone that didn't have much fire, but she has surprised us, has she not?
Yeah, so let me start by saying that these are, big issues. What's going to happen in America in November with the election? The outcome will impact on not only America, but on world politics and on us in South Africa. It's very much the same, the global trend, war and peace in the Middle East and what to expect next. And it's very difficult to predict because sometimes things happen overnight or from the one minute to the next that you might have imagined, but actually it happens. So history is marked by these moments, these turning points. I think the Middle East might be approaching one now. I don't know what your earlier conversation was like, but in America, one can probably argue that if Donald Trump wins, it'll turn international politics on its head. If Kamala Harris and her running mate, whom we don't know who it is yet, if the Democrats win, then there'll be more continuity, I think, than change. But the intriguing question is whether Kamala Harris, who has a record of meek and mild, lukewarm politician, always in the shadows behind Biden, laughing at strange moments, and she's got a trademark laugh now. Some people call it a cackle. There's lots of jokes on the social media about this. It's really an unexpected moment for her to arise, to emerge as the front runner. Of course, the Democrats must still formally condone her as the candidate of choice. Trump did that just a few days after he got shot in his ear, of which there remain intriguing and mysterious questions. Nevertheless, that propelled him forward as the most popular Republican candidate in a long time, even more than his previous stint as a president. We can talk a little bit about his running mate J.D. Vance and why that choice. But I think the policy and the political agenda on the right is emerging. We can begin to understand that. What we don't know is Kamala Harris and whether she would be able to do these things. Unite the party, get a good running mate that will complement or strengthen her, and then get clarity on the policy platform which she will go forward. And time is running out. That's another amazing feature of this American election, which I think will be very tight. The outcome will be very, very tight. There's only a few weeks left for Kamala Harris to rise to the challenge. By all counts, to come to your question directly, by all counts, she is doing that. She's gone into another gear, so to speak. She's got self-confidence. She appears mature. She thinks before she talks. Everybody's waiting for her to announce her running mate. because that's going to strengthen the package, so to speak, because she has weaknesses. There are several. The first one is that she doesn't speak with confidence and with wisdom about America's place in the world. So American foreign policy, American international relations, it matters because America is a superpower. And, whether we like whether we like American administrations and their foreign policies or not, doesn't matter. It's meaningful. It impacts on the world stage. And so what is Kamala Harris's position on a range of international issues? I suspect she's just following the Biden playbook, or the Democrat playbook. And by the way, in a footnote, in case this question comes up, I think there's very little difference between the two parties on their view on the Middle East. They both support Israel. They both detest Hamas, and they both are in favor of supplying weapons to the Netanyahu regime to continue with his annihilation politics in the West Bank, and now further afield in the Middle East. So there's no difference really between these two. So we have to search for what it is that Kamala Harris is standing for that is slightly different.
Okay, you did preempt my next question. I was going to I was going to make comment about a clip I viewed of Kamala Harris. She made a comment yesterday on CNN. She said that because, of course, the outrage against the killing or the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh and the bombing by the Israelis in Lebanon, she said that Israel has every right to protect themselves and their territory against terrorists. And I ask the question here, who are the terrorists? But let's leave that aside. So that obviously speaks for itself. It shows us, or it reflects her position, and exactly what you said. There's no difference between the Democrats and the Republicans regarding their stance on Middle East and the Middle Eastern politics. And then also, let's look at the issue. A couple of years ago, it was absolutely unthinkable that America would have a black president, and Barack Obama served 2 terms. A little while ago, there was talks in corridors, I presume in the White House. They did want to nominate Michelle Obama to stand for president. I don't know how that would have gone down. Perhaps having been the first lady and having served 2 terms, being the wife behind the president then, and being a legal professional herself, might have held her in very, very good stead. So I'm kind of wondering about the American psyche regarding Obama, regarding perhaps nominating Michelle Obama. And now we have Kamala Harris, who is also of mixed parentage. She had a black father and an Indian mother, or the other way around, married to a Jewish man. Is she going to get the support? Are the Americans open-minded enough to have a black woman to lead them and lead their country? However, knowing what her stance is regarding international and Middle Eastern politics. Like you've said, it's no different to Trump's view on Middle Eastern politics.
Yeah, I know you. It's a good question.
Long-winded, but anyway.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I was very intrigued about the American mind when they selected Barack Obama for 2 terms. And in many ways, he made a big success of his presidency. Very charismatic, powerful orator, inspiring in many ways. But on balance, he followed the template of the American political and economic elite, which is determined by the military-industrial complex, which is steering this empire in a certain direction in international relations. It is an empire in decline, so there are morbid symptoms that are beginning to show. in which country would, can you imagine an assassin is trying to take out the presidential candidate, revealing that gun violence and violence as a form of politics is become the norm in America. And also their extremely aggressive, toxic and violent foreign policy. These are all attempts to maintain the stature of the empire, but which is in decline, and the competitors are rising. For America, Russia is an irritant, but very dangerous and not going away. To the contrary, but the real enemy in the American mind is the rise of China as the next global empire, the hegemon that will determine terms of trade, terms of politics. And I think the American political and economic and military elite, this is more or less how I think they all understand this. There's a shared worldview amongst them. And Barack Obama, despite the fact that he was a Black American president, followed the same line. And in fact, here in Africa, we got to know Barack Obama. Now, there's a friend who visited us often. Michelle might have done that, a softer version of the couple. She was in South Africa for a couple of times. And people look up to her. But he unleashed this new form of warfare, drone warfare, trying to take out violent extremists, or what they call terrorists, in bases in the Sahel and Somalia and elsewhere in Africa, and introduced, this very toxic form of warfare, drones, which is really a problem, which is also defining the Ukrainian warfare, a theater of conflict. And Ismail Haniyeh was taken out by a drone, which formed part of a electronic and cyber attack against him using WhatsApp, I understand. Barack Obama was a warrior. He got the Nobel Prize for Peace.
Unbelievable.
Yes. I mean, that's an aberration. That, for me, that cast such doubt on the Nobel event, that I think it doesn't have much purpose anymore. But so there's America, heavily militarized, prepared to use nuclear weapons, as Russia might do. And it's the threat that looms over the larger Middle East. And if Kamala Harris comes into power, to come closer to your question, she is a charismatic, and she is a Black woman, and she is attractive in many ways, politically, I mean. And she's breaking new ground, and she will be the first Black American female to become a president. I mean, these are things that are admirable, but she will follow the same template. She won't be different. She won't be different from. She grew up. She is part of this ruling elite in America. We have to understand this, that she will be allowed, or she will be directed. If I can be cynical, as maybe you are also a bit cynical, there are other forces behind presidents. Presidents don't make policy. They are spokespersons of darker and more powerful forces that direct the empire in a certain direction. In a few years, we will have the same conversation about China, who is arriving at the global stage. And there's a president, or there are individuals who look charismatic and powerful, but we now understand that they are directed by others behind the scenes. Some people say, on a lighter note, some people said that Barack was directed by his wife, Michelle, which I think is true. She's the clever one of the two. But anyway, Kamala Harris, I just want to say one or two more things. The polls put her neck and neck with Trump, but things move fast. Things move so fast that last night, Trump made the error of addressing a convention of Black journalists. And there were 4 or 5 women on the stage talking to him. And it was a hostile exchange, and strong words were used. And he attacked the journalists who asked him reasonable questions. And the assessment now, the day after, is that it was a blunder. He has lost a lot of support amongst potential black voters. And I think the black journalists, the women who tackled him head on, Kamala Harris will benefit from this exchange because there's a strong feeling that Kamala Harris must now stand up and represent African Americans, younger people, people of different orientations across the board. And what happened yesterday is going to support her campaign and is going to drag Trump down a little bit. So the polls will change again. And I must say, in the next couple of weeks, 2-3 months, the polls will jump up and down. And I don't ask me to predict who will win, because at this stage, I think very few of us can actually understand the trend.
When we look at Donald Trump, I kind of ask myself whenever, I said with the last elections, with the previous elections, I didn't have to subscribe to Netflix or any comedy show. All I needed to do was go to CNN and get my comedy dose of the day with Donald Trump. What is the attraction? The man is so coarse. He is so, it's unbelievable. The head of one of the superpowers of the world, and this is how he conducts himself. The only thing I can think is that he's a narcissist. Obviously he is. And clearly he's anti-black, anti-women, and black women, really is a huge issue for him. And yet his running mate is J.D. Vance, who's married to an Indian woman. So, you look at all of these dynamics. And like you rightly say, when we look at American politics or politics all around the world, it's not the person heading up, the president or the prime minister, etc., etc. We know that there are a group of leaders behind him calling the shots. It's no different in South Africa too, with the GNU. That's politics. That's the game of politics. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Julie. Yeah. Let me also say on a lighter note, I mean, we can also, laugh at politics because there are funny moments, as serious as the decisions are that they make that can make or break nations or people. We know that it's happening right now. When I look at Trump and his boorish behavior, it reminds me of Gayton McKenzie. He's got the same sort of, the same characteristics.
Or Zuma.
Yeah, indeed. And even the same issues. I mean, there's this issue now that I don't fully understand of this woman who appears to be Nigerian who's standing for Miss South Africa. Whether she's South African or I don't quite know, but it's unleashed. And she's really beautiful. She might win the whole contest. But it's about her identity and whether she meets, those criteria of being a South African. Trump plays the same game with lots of people, including Kamala Harris, saying she's Indian. Now she calls herself black. He's joking about her identity. And Kamala Harris actually is a product of an immigrant family, and she's made it quite powerfully. And so Donald Trump, maybe we should understand his mannerisms or behavior, apart from his personality. He's doing these things and he's saying these things because he is heading up the emergence of a culture in America, which he calls MAGA. It's not a nice acronym, Make America Great Again, which is a sort of an ideological orientation which is meant to challenge and break the stranglehold of the political and economic elite in America that we spoke about just a few minutes ago. And in that sense, it is correct that there is the stranglehold of a group of very rich and well-connected, a network of influential Americans. And Trump says that they are taking America in the wrong direction. They serve their own interests. These are the billionaires. They don't care about the rest of us, and so on and so forth. And he wants to break their stranglehold, and he wants to reposition America. And he is saying to his followers, people like me, I'm a nationalist. I love my country. I love my own people. I don't like the world out there. I don't like people coming to America. I'll build a wall. I'll close. The black journalist asked him last night, what is the first thing you will do when you become the president in the White House on day one? He says, I'll close the borders for all these immigrants who come in. So lots of Americans, especially those in the lower working class, lower middle class, those who struggle with a cost of living, those who feels threatened in their identity and most probably their whiteness, feels that Donald Trump is representing them. He's going to take away these enemies, and he's challenging the rules. He's a rule breaker. He's not a rule maker. And so some people like that kind of aggressive politician in the world over. In fact, maybe I should make this sentence.
Can I just interrupt here? It talks to their fears. It talks to the poor working class people. He's talking directly to their fears, and they believe he is going to deliver.
Yeah. So I want to make a broader sentence, which is that I think we are not well served by the quality of leadership globally in these perilous times in which we live. And I'm speaking about, there are exceptions, but I'm very disappointed to see the quality of leadership that is emerging out of Europe, in particular Germany, that has lost its way. It's Europe's leading economy and country. It's lost its way. Its leadership is completely unsettled and unsure of what to do in where Germany ought to be and how to lead Europe. We can talk about that maybe another time.
Absolutely.
Netanyahu is another example of a unmoored, unsettled, misguided, narcissistic, brutal dictator, if you want, who is speaking to the fears of a group of people and who is not afraid, like others that I'm now mentioning. I've got this group of leaders that I don't like, not afraid to foment violence and hatred in the attempt to maintain control and serve self-interests. And so there's a whole range of these. I mean, they are also quite visible in many countries in Africa. And if you put them together and they go to the United Nations to talk at the General Assembly, they'll go there in September again, and each one gets 3 minutes, and there are many of them. They talk nonsense. They don't know what to say. There's no sense of visionary leadership. The United Nations itself is caught up in this very difficult transition from a declining empire on the one hand and the rise of competitors in the global south and the east on the other. And so you would have expected a strong UN leadership and a united Security Council to say a genocide in the Middle East is completely unacceptable, and here's what we're going to do about it. They met yesterday again, and the Permanent Five all made their 3 or 4 minute speeches, and it was predictable, and they don't agree on what to do next. It is a big disappointment, I think, for the global citizenry that our leaders are not serving the cause of peace and security. And I'm very cynical now. If Kamala Harris, despite all of the wonderful things that we've teased out, that stands out, if she wins the race and becomes the next president with whoever her running mate is, the American empire will behave in the same manner, and we will be disappointed.
Let's not hold out our hopes, because that's exactly the discussion my husband and I had regarding she's just going to follow the democratic elitist template, and she will obviously obey all of the rules, and it is what it is. Before we wrap up, I do need to say to you that I have to invite you to another show sometime soon. We really need to talk about world politics, and I think it's going to be a fascinating discussion. But let's look at what we're talking about right now. Early on in the interview, you indicated that and we all know this, that the American elections is going to have a huge impact on Middle East politics, well, all around the world. But I'd like to understand the impact on South Africa. I don't think their policies will change regarding the Middle East. Just maybe common sense might prevail, and they might push harder for a peace process in the Middle East. But I'd like to look at the impact on South Africa.
Yeah. Just a sentence on the Middle East before we come to South Africa. I heard the rather disturbing argument now that is emerging, that it'll take a war for peace to be made.
Oh.
Yes.
Well, can I tell you something, Professor? When the genocide started shortly after October last year, I think we here at Salam Media were the first organization that started using the word genocide. And we were called out for it. And look at it now, almost a year later. It is exactly what it is. At that point in time, I spoke to political analysts as well, and I asked, does this perhaps mean that there's going to be a regional war in the Middle East and possibly a third world war? And most of them agreed with me, and you raising the very same issue here.
Yeah, we're getting closer to that point. You keep on saying that a sense of sensibility and logic
won't prevail here.
Will draw us back from the precipice, but I don't see it. I see the opposite happening. I'm reading these signs. It's happening on a daily basis. The temperature goes. Okay, South Africa. Well, you know, the American foreign policy toward South Africa under the ANC government was a tense one, because the Americans, I mean, in their foreign policy, they promote and protect their national interests. They don't care about, you know, the finer things in life. Soft power, cultural exchanges, love for music, the kind of things that many states engage in, you know, cultural exchanges and academic exchanges and so on. The Americans are quite brutal. They look at Africa. They have many soldiers in Africa. It's called AFRICOM. And the latest is that they are cozying up to Botswana across the border to work with some in the region on peace and security issues, meaning that they have interests, for example, in the metals and minerals in the DRC, oil in Sudan, and so on and so forth. So that's why the Americans are here. And the ANC government, until recently, had a very clear foreign policy template, which it followed. It's a member of BRICS. It supports what it calls progressive internationalism globally. It had friends in the Middle East. It was not afraid to pursue the cause of Palestinian justice. And the Americans looked at this and they said, no, but these ANC foreign policy, these ANC politicians are cozying up to our enemies. And there was a lot of pressure in America, in their foreign policy establishment, in their political environment, to bring South Africa, to teach us a lesson, to humble us, our government, and to say, if you want to have a relationship with us, particularly a trade relationship, then you'll have to make some decisions. We don't want you to be so close to some of our enemies. Now everything has changed, and we have to rewrite the foreign policy handbook. Maybe as an academic, I need to do that with my colleagues, because the government of national unity now has different ideological persuasions, of which the DA is the biggest one, and it might dilute the direction that South Africa takes over the next 5 years, possibly. And I think the Americans look at the composition of the GNU and they see, if you ask me, they think the DA. By the way, the DA wrote a letter to the Americans before the election to say, can you come and help us to manage the outcome of the election? Remember that part?
I'm aware of that. I'm aware of that. But I'm so sorry, Professor. We have to end it there. My next guest is on standby, but I look forward to another really deep conversation with you, and a lengthy one at that as well. It's been absolutely fascinating. Thank you indeed. Till the next time, God bless.
Thank you very much, and goodbye.
9:49 News and Views, our final interview coming up. Thank you indeed for staying with us. We are now going to be talking with Professor Syed Mohammed Marandi, Professor of English Literature and Orientalism at the University of Tehran. Stay with us.